Hi everyone, and welcome to this week's Wallsend history story. This week's not really a history story. I am just having a little wander round Holy Cross Cemetery. Now it is a very warm, red hot day today, but it is also a little bit windy, so I'm hoping that the sound won't be lost on this video. So I am a little bit closer to the microphone, hopefully, so I'm hoping that will help. Anyway, like I said, this is just a little wander round Holy Cross Cemetery. Now I'm not going to record any of the graves. That's not something I'm going to do, because the majority of the graves in here are quite recent. There are, of course, an awful lot of old graves in here as well, but I'm not going to basically film any of the graves. I'm just going to have a walk around, so that if you don't live here anymore and you want to see what the cemetery's like now, or even if you do live here and you're just interested in seeing the little video, that's all it's going to be. So I'm just going to walk up and down a couple of the footpaths. Now I'm sure that would be the wind there, so I'm hoping that it's not really taking away the sound, because like I said, it is quite difficult when it's windy to get the camera so that it doesn't take the sound of just the wind and not me. So I'm sure that, like me, a lot of you do have family buried in here. My grandparents on my dad's side are just down that aisle there. You can see the little, we'll zoom up on that one, you can see the little flowers in front of it there. So that's my grandparents, but I also have an awful lot of other people buried in here as well. Some of them have headstones and some of them don't. And in all honesty, the majority of them don't. But that was because when a lot of them were buried, it was a long time ago, and headstones were just things that people couldn't really afford. So there's an awful lot of unmarked graves in Holy Cross, and obviously we often find that, we often find that people ask about where or how to find their relatives when they're looking, and I always say that the North Shields Bereavement Office, which is basically Tynemouth Creme, you can phone them up, they will come and find an unmarked grave for you, and sometimes you can get it just plotted on a map and you can look yourself. Other times, obviously, you will need them to come out, because I have noticed when looking for a headstone here and in Churchbank Cemetery that they are incredibly difficult to find sometimes, because although the cemetery looks quite what I would call regimented with rows upon row, it isn't always counted quite in the way that you would expect, and it's sometimes slightly different. So you find that you can't actually find them by counting along from finding a numbered one. But I just thought that I would add that in, because I know a lot of people do often ask how to find an unmarked grave in any of the cemeteries in the northeast, in the Wallsend, North Tyneside area. It's a totally different system for Newcastle. If you're looking at Newcastle, I think you have to contact Newcastle City Council. I'm not really sure on that one, so don't quote me on that one. But I know that's different. But if you're looking at Wallsend, North Shields, Whitley Bay, it's Tynemouth Creme's the best place to contact. So anyway, just wandering on. As you can see, a lot of huge big trees. I mean, a lot of these trees unfortunately were blown down in the awful storm that we had in 2021. I'm just going to zoom up there. I don't know if it'll focus. Sometimes it does, sometimes it doesn't. But you can see a stump there, which is the remains of one of the trees that did get blown down. And there was quite a lot of trees that got blown down. So this part is one of the older parts. There's quite a lot of older graves here. And you'll also find that this part is slightly less, like I just said before, regimental. It's a little bit more, they're not really in very clear lines. They're sort of, some of them seem to be coming a little bit further back on the ones behind. But this is an older part, and I'm not sure, because I don't know how it was done in the past, but this cemetery first opened in 1918, and it was opened because, if you've watched the video that I did a while ago about Churchbank Cemetery, and obviously the fact that it was full and there was a requirement really for another cemetery that was bigger because that was absolutely overcrowded. So when this was first opened, obviously it would have been completely empty, and I don't know whether it was a case of you could pick where you wanted to be buried. So therefore, whoever was the first person buried in here could be anywhere basically, because they may have decided that they wanted to be over by the chapel, or that they wanted to be down by the houses. It's hard, well, the houses weren't there at that point, the houses came a little bit later, but it's impossible to know where the first person that was buried in here would be. There's another stump from one of the trees that was unfortunately blown down, and you can see from that tree there that they were rather large trees, and they were all planted when the cemetery was open. So the majority of them were planted when the cemetery was open, so that would have been 1918. So they were really old trees, they were over 100 years old. So just wandering down here, and I'm going to go up to where the old shelter used to be, because there did used to be a shelter in here which is no longer here. It was taken away a long time ago. From what I know about it, I believe that it was often vandalised, so I think they eventually decided to just remove it and not have it there anymore. I think it was probably mainly just used for people to sit in, basically when they were coming to a funeral at the chapel and they were maybe early and they wanted somewhere to sit out of the rain and the wind. I don't think it was really used for anything else, but it has been removed and it's no longer there. So I'm coming up towards that now, and also when I turn round here you will be able to see in the distance there probably a lot of work going on round the chapel, but we'll come to that when we get a little bit closer to it. So as you come up here, this, where the car is in front of me, that is basically where the old sort of little shelter used to be. Well, I'm saying little, it was quite large. So as I come up, I'm a bit out of breath because it's so hot. It doesn't help. And there's another tree stump there that you can see from one of the trees that was unfortunately blown down. Now the cemetery is quite well looked after. I know a lot of people complain that the grass isn't picked up when the grass is cut, but the grass just dies off. You know, it doesn't really suddenly turn into weeds or anything, and it is quite a well looked after cemetery. So this used to be the shelter, so that really is all that's left of it. It's just a square block in the ground now, so there's nothing there, but that's where the shelter used to be. I'm sure that some of you probably can remember it. I can't, but I'm sure that some of you probably can. So going back now up towards the chapel and also up towards the entrance of the cemetery. So as you come up here you have the chapel, which, like I said, there is a lot of work going on there at the moment. So I believe, I'm not certain, but I believe there may have been some damage to the spire, because that has all been replaced and repaired, and it now has the top back on it. Though it looks at the moment like it's got a bit of a witch's hat on, because there's a little bit of plastic, if you can see that, because this camera's an old camera, it doesn't always focus when I zoom, but it's got a little bit of a witch's hat on the top there. So that's the chapel, which is still used, but at the moment obviously it's not in use because it's getting a lot of work done to it. From what I can see of what's been done to the spire, it does look very good. It looks like it's all kind of been, I would say, pointed, but I don't know whether you point that kind of brickwork, but that's kind of what it looks like has been going on. So yeah, so that's your main entrance to Holy Cross Cemetery, as you can see, and there's the cemetery was the cemetery house, but as a lot of you probably know as well, the houses in both here and in Churchbank Cemetery were sold a while ago, so They are now privately owned. The one in Churchbank Cemetery has just recently sold. So I'm just going to walk up here to one last little thing. I'm not going to go much further because obviously, as I say, it's just a little bit of a wander. So it's not really history. It's just a little bit of a wander around Churchbank. Yeah, please, it's not Churchbank because that is a bank, around Holy Cross Cemetery. So that's the chapel again from the other side. So I'm just going to go up to here. There's another tree stump. So you can see when I said that there was an awful lot of trees that were damaged in that storm of 2021. So over there is where my stepdad is buried as well. So like I say, I have a lot of family in here. So this part is the war graves, but this isn't the only war graves that are in here. There are also lots of war graves. You can see one over there. I'm just going to zoom up on it a little bit. You can see there are a lot of war graves in here. That's not the only ones, but it really is just a very nice, quiet, peaceful little place. And right up in the distance there, which I'm going to zoom on, and we're going to hope for the best, because yes, I don't think that's going to zoom and focus. I don't think so, but that is the cross that used to be on St Aidan's Church, and it's now in Holy Cross Cemetery. So like I say, just a little short video around the cemetery, a little wander. I hope you have enjoyed it and found it interesting. There's no history to it really, it was just a little walk around. So hopefully I will be back for some more little wanders around Wallsend like this later on in the year. So anyway, thank you for watching, and I hope to see you all again very soon.